Well, g'day everybody. My name is Richard and welcome to another edition of Australian Paddock. And today we're back in the vineyard because I wanted to do another video on pruning for frost. So last year I did a pruning for frost video, and the idea was to leave everything at about 8 buds and after the frost, prune them. But what happened was I pruned them, and then in November we had 2 really bad frosts in a row. And here's the point, we still made really nice wine. So I'm not actually convinced that worrying about frost is even a thing. So this year, I thought I'd just try something a little bit different, and we'll do an experiment where we prune one vine and leave the other one until after the frosts. See what happens. Hope you like this video. As always, with all my videos, any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and please like and subscribe. Let's go and have a look at a couple of plants that we're going to do our experiment with. So that post in the middle, separating my 2 trial plants. We have one nice plant here on the left. Hope you can see it's got lots of lovely growth. It has bud burst. Normally this would have been pruned back, but I'm leaving it deliberately. The one on the right looks pretty much the same. Very similar level of development, both bud burst. Nice branches coming up. What I call pretty normal espaliering when you're doing spur pruning. So what I'm going to do is I've marked my posts with a bit of string, so I know to come back to them. I'm going to prune the one on the right down to 2 buds, standard spur pruning. One on the left I'm going to leave. Then I'm going to come back in the middle of November after the frost, so it's the start of October. Daylight saving has just kicked in. I'm going to give it about 6 weeks after this. We'll come back, then I'll prune this one, and we'll see how we go. So this video might take a while, but it's an experiment. We'll see if pruning for frost makes any difference at all. So here is a standard spur, looking for 2 buds. There's one at the bottom there, and there's one here that's already bud burst. There's also another one at the base here. They say you should leave about 5 millimeters before you consider this to be the bottom bud. If that makes sense. And then the next bud up. So what we do is we're spur pruning here. So there's a spur prune. And the same thing here. We're probably going to, it's an interesting one. Do we leave this one and spur prune here? There's another one at the base here. I'm actually going to take this one off here. And what I'll do is I'll continue down until we've spur pruned the plant. I've spur pruned it to what I think is the correct methodology. If anyone's got any comments on my pruning, I'm more than happy to receive feedback. Be kind. This is my first real year of doing proper spur pruning. So I've got a lot to learn, I admit that. So there you go. That's all spur pruned, and here it is. This one's left completely untouched. So, as the sign said, it's a month later. We've just crossed Melbourne Cup Day, which is the official end of frosts, except for last year when we had 2 really bad rogue frosts in November. So it's time to have a look at our 2 plants side by side and just see what the difference is. We've had some fairly cold weather, so things haven't been growing really well, but we'll see if there's a difference between the lower buds on the unpruned ones versus those spur pruned buds on the pruned ones. So firstly, let's look at the pruned one, and this is it here. Now, there's quite a lot of growth really, I suppose. This plant has grown more than some of the others. Now, if you look around the rest of the vineyard, I have pruned the entire thing, and you can see there's quite nice growth coming up. We've had no frost, which is really helpful. A lot of primary bud action. So if you look really closely, get right in underneath, you can see here that I've got the 2 buds behind the leaf there. The 2 buds, one here and one here, growing really nicely from the cut, which was there. So that's a classic spur prune, and the growth is coming up very nicely. I will need to remove some growth off this, but essentially this is growing well. Now, because we haven't had any frost, it's a difficult comparison, but if you come across and look at the exact same plant here, which is, I'll zoom back a little bit here. So this is our unpruned plant. As you can see, it's still quite large and growing quite strongly. If we come and look at some of these closer, lower down buds, maybe here's a good example. You can see here that these are the lower buds, the spur pruned buds, or buds you would normally spur prune here, haven't really grown at all. And that's what we're technically after. Bit hard to see around here. Oh, very hard to see. But I can just sort of show you there's some more buds. I'll get my hand in there to get the focus. You see those buds are really not going at all. Now, if we had some nasty frosts, the expectation is that those buds would be protected. So that's exactly what we're after in terms of protecting from frost. Try and see some more lower buds in here that haven't burst at all. We've come back up here, and the higher up buds, ones further away from the base, have grown substantially. Now we are technically wasting nutrients, and that's the caveat, or that's the balance you've got to try and put into it. And also the challenge of pruning. So what I'll have to do is do a top prune, sort of cut it off around here, try not to damage any of the lower foliage, then come in a second prune and get it back down to the spurs. So I'll do that right now. So that's my first pass of pruning, pretty rough. Took a fair bit off though, there it all is. So now I'll go in, and now we'll try and tidy it right up to some spurs. Now some buds, obviously there are no spurs, and I have noticed on some of the other vines that these buds are pushing through, and so hopefully we can actually still grow some plant from those buds this year, but it's not critical. So here we are, pruned to spurs. There's a few missing canes on this one, but generally I'm aiming for a spur prune like this, 1, 2, and you can see they haven't really opened yet. Another one, if I can just get in there. There we go. That one's coming up already. This one actually had 3 growing from it, so I've brought it down to a single one. So that's enough for the moment. So the next question that we really want to ask from this is there going to be any difference in yield of fruit? Now, given that the difference in actual growth is so minimal, I think it's highly unlikely we'll get a difference in yield. And if you compare the vine right next to it that was pruned 4 weeks ago, you can see that the buds are still only just opening there as well. And that's also because I pruned late. I pruned everything late. So there's a lot of buds in the whole vineyard that are like that. There's certainly some great growth. Look at this one here, for example. But a lot of buds, and you can see them here again. Where I pruned only a month ago, it's still quite late. So I would actually conclude from this that as long as you're not pruning in, say, August, but pruning more in October to November, you can certainly delay bud burst. And if you do get frosts, hopefully you won't lose at least your secondary buds. And that's sort of the idea of it. So as always, I hope you really liked this video and you could learn something from it. I certainly have. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe. I really enjoy making the videos. And I'll see you again, maybe in the vineyard. See you soon.